Is it correct to have Phil marked, listed under absent, even though he just arrived late?
I'm not sure what the protocol is on that.
Oh, yeah, you arrived late would be.
I think it shows, yeah, and then it has it.
Yeah, I just
there.
wasn't sure. It's absent, and it shows that he arrived late. I didn't know if that's...
Where does it say right there? Oh, okay.
You just wanted to highlight the fact that I was derelict.
Again,
Yeah,
You actually arrived earlier than you said you would, so...
that's true.
You just want to strike the word absent.
Yeah, I just didn't know if we should move him up into the present column just with the late arrival listed.
That's fine. It's all good. So somebody want to make a motion for these minutes?
make a motion that we accept the minutes as presented for December 17th. December 17th.
I'll second. That was amended.
Okay. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Hold your hands up. Opposed? Abstentions? Excellent. All right. Jeff, do we have a correspondence folder?
Being passed around, we actually don't really have any correspondence.
Okay. I think it was a light week for correspondence, delegation, and individuals. I don't see any. Admin report. I've got nothing under this category because we're just going to talk about it under our other sections. Reports of committees. I'm going to jump right to school board rep. Do you have anything for us?
Yes, I do. The school board asked me to bring back to this board, because right now, I believe the proposed budget this board voted on is, I believe, approximately $1 million above the school board's default, and we're recommending that you guys revisit it and see if we can get this number closer. So we're just going by statistically, we don't want to see $1 million spread between the default and the proposed and hurt our chances of passing the proposed. So I believe, Mike, you had a couple of conversations with Kim Farah. You and I had a brief conversation. We're suggesting, obviously it's up to this board to do what they want. We're suggesting lowering it 500, and the money would come from your 2900 line, and we're basing that on expenditures, and the other 100 probably out of capital, so 42 or 4600, because we as a school board are not allowed to put money in capital, much like a proposed budget can. So that was the rationale, from the school board. Bring the message back to the budget committee.
Peter and then Ellen.
When I watched it on TV, I saw a motion made to reduce the budget by $500,000, a comment from Kim saying she hadn't even read the budget thoroughly, and there was no discussion at all about where it came from. So I don't understand, Brian, how you're making specific recommendations of where to take it from.
Well,
That wasn't the whole school board that voted.
that's
on that.
true. That's an accurate statement. Here's what the school board did vote. Lower it by $500,000, because this is a proposed budget, so it all gets very quickly to a bottom line. So, again,
But why?
why?
Yeah, why? I mean, what came up? Where did the 500,000 come from? Is it just a feeling?
I just told
or-
you. You're.
But I watched the school board meeting too, and that wasn't discussed at all. I mean,
You
2,900.
know what? You can do whatever you want, whatever this board wants to do. We're making a recommendation.
is the default in stone? Have you
Pretty
guys
much.
voted
Yeah,
that in?
I hope it doesn't go down, but it might. But pretty much, yeah, it's not going up. So it's, I wouldn't look at that as the answer. This place ran on about $69 million last year.
But is it going to run in 69 million this year?
Should, because we removed about $1 million in payroll.
Jeff?
Some of that payroll was already out, though.
But the expected surplus at this point in June is roughly $1 million, based on a $72 million budget. Is that about right?
Plus,
Be about right, yeah.
So that sounds like we could spend 71 this year, right?
I'm not seeing that, but that's what you're thinking. We're not seeing anything that shows that, but it's okay. I'm bringing back a message. This board can do whatever this board wants to do.
We just don't want to end with no surplus, Brian. I thought you were a proponent of that as well.
We won't. They're basically that, I'm like about 200% confident that this place can run on that default budget if it passes, just like it did last year. The sky was falling last year. That's we all sat back and heard all about this, can't be done, can't be done, can't be done. Well, they did it. What a miracle. So, again, I didn't come here to argue with you people. It's like, I brought a message from my board, and our board would like to see a higher budget.
What is the default now, that you've got now?
It's,
70.
I think it's 70.9.
70.9.
We're around 71.9.
And that, in fact, we don't control what can happen on the floor. So last year on the floor, someone got up and raised it, whatever it was, $1 million. And then everyone sat back and was shocked that it didn't pass. It's like, okay, I'm not sure what you're shocked at, but you can all walk out of there, the 100 and 200 people that show up at that hearing and think that they conquered the world, but the voters sat back, so that's all.
They could do the same and lower it though, right?
No.
Yeah.
You can't lower the number?
You can,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
10%.
Alan?
Well, I tend to agree with Brian, and we need to get that number closer and deliberative, because they're not gonna vote. I don't think they will for the 71.9 or 72, whatever you feel comfortable with. And also, on the other, that he mentioned the CIP. I would like to raise the CIP and have it, and that be the difference between the 70, we're in the 71.5 range, and raise the CIP somehow. Because they can't put money in the CIP, we can. Correct? Am I correct in saying that?
Pretty much.
So that's what I would like to look at, if possible.
Well, that's where a big chunk of the difference is, half the difference of what
Yeah,
they're
I'm saying,
asking.
I don't know, but we raise the
Well, I think it's
CIP
more than
budget.
half.
Because we're looking at a point now where that'll give the voters, at the deliberative, something to think about. Start to invest in the school, or go with the bottom line budget. And plus, it's lower than we had last year. And plus, we have coming up is also the teacher's contract coming up, too. It's gonna be added onto this.
All right.
So
So let me just do
So
this real
that's,
quick.
those things are coming up.
So just hold your thoughts for a minute. What I really wanted to get was an update of the school board rep. You've got it.
Okay.
And then we can move this discussion, which we'll gladly have, which is the whole purpose of really tonight,
Yep,
down a couple more items on the agenda. How's that sound?
perfect.
So, do you have any other news, Brian?
No.
Okay. Unfinished business. I keep turning to you, David. Parking lot, we got nothing, right?
No, that's correct.
So, under our budget reviews, there's a couple things I wanted to do. I want to open up to the floor. This is pretty much our last meeting to discuss any budgetary information. And then, when we're done, and I also want to discuss, and Jeff will walk us through, do we want to do anything with the SAU budget line that's in our budget? And then when we're all done, if we could make a motion to move our budget to the public hearing, to formalize it. So we can take these one piece at a time. The SAU budget, open up for discussion, and then finalize it. So I'd like to do the SAU budget
Yeah.
first.
Well, we should probably refer back to Brian. What's the school, what'll be on that?
No, well, hold on. I think I can answer it without Brian getting it.
Okay.
They don't have anything for us yet.
Okay,
Fair enough, Brian?
Fair enough, yeah.
There we go, okay.
okay.
Kathy, you have a question?
Well, I have a comment. What was that? Oh, sorry.
I'm just sorting.
Take his favorites.
No fighting.
I'm passing them. I think that my opinion on the SAU line is to leave it as is, because they will be meeting to generate a budget, and if that changes, that should be changed at the public hearing.
Be part of
If they
default
come
anyway,
in
right?
higher or lower, or, if they hopefully come in lower, we would set it lower.
But we have to be careful, and Jack, correct me if I'm wrong, so if we go forward with the number we have, and the SAU budget comes in higher, we can't raise it.
Yes, we can. Oh, sorry.
At public hearing or after public hearing?
Without having another public hearing.
At public hearing, we can change that line.
Correct, but afterwards, the idea is notice, right? So we can notice for the public hearing, and that's
Okay.
the amount. If it's higher than that, then we have to have another public hearing. But at public hearing, it's fine.
So I think my understanding from what came out of the court today is that there'll be a meeting tomorrow night that was already
Got
posted.
it.
And then they have to have their public hearing before ours. And so we will know that number at our public hearing. So it goes in chronological order, and we will have the opportunity to make a motion to change that line
At public hearing.
at our deliberative, yes,
At our public hearing.
yes.
Mike?
Hold on. Jeff, that sound accurate for you?
Sounds fine. I will point out as you dig a little deeper into your packet, we don't have a budget, so I've provided both copies of what we do
We're
have.
gonna get there. Peter?
I was gonna mention, I think the safe thing to do would be to take a look at Jeff's proposed budget, which it's gotta have increases in personnel costs and benefits, because we know insurance is going up, and ask about what the apportionment looks like. 'Cause
Okay.
like, the apportionment's changed, I think Jeff has a calculation for that.
Here's what I want
Put that
everybody to do.
number in there.
In the back of your packet, you should have two papers that look like this. They both say draft SAU budget, one's from December 19th, one's from October 3rd. And I'm gonna let Jeff go over this. So these are draft SAU budgets as requested from administration. So one is dated October 3rd. The most recent one is October 19th. And the final paper I want you to get out in front of you, please, is, where's the one with the portions on it?
Oh, that's that's the third page
Oh,
in each budget report. The
So-
last page.
if you actually look at page 3 of each document, you will see at the very bottom, under the percentage, 2019, 2020, on the October 3rd, you've got a apportionment of 76.17, but on the 12/19, the more recent, it's the percent change. Actually, no.
Sounds the same.
Jeff, didn't the apportionment change there?
From 1819.
I'm sorry, for 1819, it went from, 76.45 to 76.17. So the apportion went down for Timberlane. The numbers changed slightly. So we're at 1.691, and then the most recent one is 1.635. We currently have budgeted
1641.
1641. So we're sitting,
That's on page 11 of that of the legal report, legal size report, long report.
page
We're actually over
11.
budgeted.
By about 5,000.
Page 11 on that legal sized report. And then it's about halfway down the 12320, 310.
Where is it on here? 123.20.
Right there.
Yeah, 1641, okay. So we can do two things. Well, we have different choices. Keep it where it is. We can move it up to the most recent requested right now, or we can completely just wait until things fall out in chronological order. The SAU board produces a budget, they have their public hearing. We make an adjustment at our public hearing one time with the correct number. Thoughts? John?
I think it's probably gonna, we are assuming that this number, but I'm sure there's probably gonna be changes to it.
Say that again?
I'm guessing there's probably gonna be motions for changes to this budget, the draft budget at the SCU meeting tomorrow night, which could force us to change it again. I don't wanna keep changing it just because we don't have a number. So my feeling is that we have a number in there,
A placeholder number.
yeah, it's just as good as the number that's in this draft document.
I just want to make sure that we are plenty comfortable, Jeff. If things chronologically go through as they should, and we have a final number at public hearing, we can just make a motion to change that line to the accurate number as we know it on that day.
That's fair.
That sounds fair? Because, John, I agree with you. I mean, why keep changing it daily if, just change it once when we know the final number?
Yeah.
So we put together a slideshow for that public hearing, and typically what we do is that reflects the budget that's been moved on by this
Yes,
board.
right.
So those, if we know that there's gonna be a change, and there would be a change, right? Up, down, it's not gonna be exact, could be, doubt
Right,
it.
right.
Then that presentation should be off a little bit. I think that we would have to present with the number that is passed tonight, right? Even if you went in
Sure.
and the very first matter that you did
Right.
was adjust that budget
Mhm.
before the hearing even got underway. So we'll have a little disconnect, I just point that out.
Right, so the changes that we're looking at goes from 90, so about $50,000, right? Is the change right now.
And just to clarify, the latest dated one says draft discussed at the SAU board. There's been no discussion at the SAU level on the budget, right?
There has.
It has?
But not at an official board meeting. There was discussion at the last meeting on December 19th.
That had no quorum.
There was no quorum.
Right, so there was no official discussion.
That's
on
correct.
it.
Why don't we just call it
Informational session.
the informational session on December 19th? Thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Right,
Informational
that's, I
session, yeah.
just, I haven't seen it yet, so I just want,
Yeah.
there's no video for it.
I'm like, well, what do you,
Because
what
we
do
never started,
what do we
right?
call it? It wasn't
Well,
really
do it.
presented, it was
Okay.
just discussed, I don't know.
So right now, I'm just trying to get a sense of what this board wants to do about adjusting this number, now or down the road. Kathy?
I just have, you mentioned that there's a $50,000 difference. I think there's a $5,000 difference. Am I not doing
1.64 and
3.5? So another 5,000 brings that up. Okay. I'm
Oh,
just.
I went from the other one.
No, if you look at the two budgets, the two different, the high budget to the low budget, the difference from where we are right now to the high budget at 1691, is that what you're, that was
Yes.
50,000?
I'm looking at the 1635, which is the proposed for 2019, 2020.
And then there's another budget as well, which was the first draft that was
Do you have,
presented
do you
as
have
well.
both copies, Kathy?
So am I supposed to be looking at what was generated on the 19th, or is this more recent?
I'd look at them both, there's no, I don't have a budget, I don't have a number, this is all
What's
that
the
we
most
have.
recent number, from the 19th?
That's the most recent number from the
Okay.
19th, that was
So
not,
$5,000
that wasn't
difference.
really, that wasn't presented before any, meeting with quorum, or wasn't discussed by that board formally.
But I'm assuming if it's the most recent budget, it's probably the most accurate number?
Yeah, could be,
Okay.
depending on which
So
way,
5,000. I
which
just
way-
wanted to make that correction.
Okay.
which way the board goes.
Bill?
Having not heard the informational session at the SAU, was there anything impactful discussed that might affect how we approach this?
I saw it briefly. I don't think so. Were you at that meeting?
Oh, of course. I don't know that too much was discussed. I know that the budget in 1219 contemplates level staffing. I know there have been some recommendations made relative to staffing by a Timberland consultant, so.
Is your question, was any of this discussed at that gathering?
I was just, if there was any conversation germane at that meeting that might affect how we approach this tonight.
Was there, Jeff?
I'm sensing that there wasn't.
I don't think so. I don't think so. I mean, there's some numbers moved around in the SAU budget, but
But not on December 19th.
no, and nothing that would,
Right. I think that was Bill's question. On December 19th.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Wasn't the recommendation from you and the superintendent to move forward the number that we approved in this budget? Same as last year, moving it forward?
I believe that that's what the board had been looking for after the 10-3 review.
Okay, so that was the recommendation that they made in the informative session.
Right.
Oh,
Okay.
that's the number we brought back.
Okay. So I'm not hearing a lot, so I think we're just gonna leave it put, and then we will make an adjustment at the public hearing for this line item. Everybody good with that?
Yes. Well, that was almost easy. That takes care of SAU. So thanks for that update. And we look forward to getting a finalized, corrected number, Brian. Okay. Here's what I just want to, let's see. So now I'm going to open it up for general discussion on the budget. And before I do that, this is what I want to do. You should have a paper in your packet that looks like this. A simple spreadsheet. I put this one together. It's just FYI. I basically went back about 14 years. I went through the annual reports to put down what the proposed, what the default was. In some years, the default was higher than the proposed. Other years, the proposed was higher than the default. Irregardless, the numbers that are highlighted in green are the ones that passed. And there's another column for low and high. That's just basically say, which one did the voters choose that year? Did they choose the lower number, or did they choose the higher number, regardless what you called it by a label, default or proposed? I put the spread in there so you can kind of see what the difference in dollar was between the proposed and the default. So again, this is FYI. I'm not looking to make a discussion out of it, other than just help you all tonight in your thinking.
This is very valuable. So I think you put this together, so
I put this together.
thank you very much.
So if there's any errors in it, you know who to blame.
Like, I just think looking, what was most remarkable in looking at this perspective is when you look at the budget years from 2011, 12 to the beginning where you've started tracking it, and you're looking at like a 34%, almost 35% increase. And from that year forward, it's like a 14.4 in total. You can see the budget went from 46 million to 62 over 7 years, 8 years, and then from 62 to 71 over 7 years. Interesting trend. I don't think I've seen it like this before. So thank you. Since 2012, you're at 14% over all those years, average maybe of 2%.
Isn't the last line I'm supposed to be minus 929? Am I confused?
No. The proposed was 929 more than the default that year, last year.
Yeah, but the difference, yeah, but I thought that was just showing the difference between what was passed and what was, so if you look at 2017, the proposed was 71,233,328, and the default was 21,700. So it's just showing the difference between the default and the.
If you see a plus
Okay.
on that column, Ellen, it basically means
The
that
default was higher.
the proposed is higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Try not to make this
Okay.
too complicated, but,
Okay, brother.
so. All right. With that being said, because when I heard, the reason I generated this is when I watched the school board meeting and they put forth their opinion of where they'd like to see this budget, I just wanted to get a sense of what's our historical trend of how much has the spread been between the two numbers, regardless of which one was higher or lower, the default or the proposed. Just what's the spread that we've always put in front of the voters? And that was the interesting part to me. Other than last year, we've been pretty much more consistent with the spread. So.
And that, on last year's was distorted because of the increase that was voted and deliberative,
Yes. Right.
that added extra money.
Right.
And it didn't, one of the reasons I felt it didn't pass was neither board supported the change. And so we
Agreed.
came out in public opposed to that change.
Okay. I don't want to beat up this document because that's all it was for, so. I'm going to put this one to the side. I'm going to open up the floor for any other discussions on the budget. Alan?
Well, I just think, I mean, I don't want to beat this up, but if you look at the last 9 years, the trend was that take the lesser amount, was the vote, was the derivative. So, I don't know if you want to hope that holds any water, but we're going to be, right now, we're $1 million more. I don't know. I mean, we're going to put that number out there, and I think you can look at the default of the 70,009.
That again?
70,009. It's got, right
Okay,
now, we're
I
$1
got
million
it.
difference.
Yeah.
And so based on this trend, the last 9-10 years, they've always gone for the cheaper budget.
Can I point out another trend if we were looking at that same column? Do you notice how the number for the default continues to go up, just like the proposed? Because that's a sign of the times, and yet this year, it's going
Well, we
down by
also-
$1 million. Yeah.
Let him finish.
Well, no, we've also been operating with too many teachers for so long, at least 10 years. So we finally, we've,
You're down 1,000 students, maybe 1,100.
yeah, so we're down 1,000 students. So stop
But
with
not
the-
from last year to this year.
Yes.
Over the last
It was-
10 years.
Last 10 years.
Yeah.
Spiraling down like a rocket.
So that's what I'm saying is, so this budget is more in line with the actual student body we have.
Which is going up
That's all I
by,
have to say.
what, 40 students from last year to this year? And then another 40 from the year
Down
before that to
1,000.
there? Right, overall, over 15 years,
We'll
Alan.
probably put another,
The point.
But to the tune of $1 million from last year? I mean, this board, which I was not on last year, put out a number that was $1 million less than this proposed that's in this spreadsheet. It was added at deliberative, we all agree on that. The school board and the budget committee recommended that proposed budget up until there was an add of $1 million at deliberative. And yet now we want to talk about lowering the number that this board agreed was the right number last year.
okay, I can make this quick. So you think you want to be at 71 where we were last week? That's what you want to be?
Level
I can
funded.
check, I mean, that's it, okay. Make a motion, we can move on our way. I mean,
Hold on.
I'm not gonna argue about it.
We're not arguing, we're discussing. David, did you have something?
Yeah, I just want to emphasize, re-emphasize what Mr. McCormick has just said. You know, the key to making any of these budgets work with the voters is the support of the boards, okay? And because neither board supported that, a change that was made by the deliberative, it made it really difficult for them to be able to pass that.
Yeah.
And I think that the main difference between last year and this year is that last year, there was very little time spent in our meetings to talk about how the bottom line, the unadjusted bottom line came in. It was just, we're gonna take a bottom line, a certain figure and use it. We didn't seriously take into consideration all of the proposals coming from the department heads and the principals. This year, we worked very closely with the department heads and principals. The department heads and principals were giving a charge right from the beginning to say, this is what that needs to happen. And we need to support that work. There was a lot of work done on a lot of folks to create this level-funded budget. And to come in with a 500K reduction and say, well, it ought to come from the 2,200 line, just negates the kind of effort that was done by the administrators and the others to come up with a balanced number that they had.
All right, so let me just go on before I start addressing these other folks here. This is what I think the view of this board needs to do. So our job is to do just what David said, listen to the presentation from all the building administrators, and come up with a recommended budget. So we heard from everybody. We came up with a number that we pretty much summed up at 71.9. We have to make sure that we're going to present something that we need to sell to the voters. And so I've kept telling this whole board, don't look behind us at what the school board's doing with the default. We should really operate in the bubble and come up with our number. Until we get to the end,
Because what I think we have to do is, we have to ask the voters, will you support this number? We have to sell it to them. We need this proposed budget to pass. So it's really up to you. It's what you feel. Do you feel they would support it at this number? If the spread's fine, or if it's not fine? So it's not just, we came up with a number, it's now, do we have a number that we think the voters will support? So, I'm gonna go Brian and then Todd.
Okay, I just want to point out that what was not in last year's number, because, I'm sorry, it was in last year's number, but it's not in this year's number, is the teacher's contract. Teacher's contract's approximately $800,000. So, right now, the school board's 9-0 recommending teacher's contract. So no matter what budget the voters pass, propose or default, I certainly hope they pass the teacher's contract. So you didn't have that on the ballot last year. So that's a real number.
Todd.
I'd like to ask Jeff, and I think this document is pointing us to that.
Can you show us which one you got here again?
The Timberlane Regional School District 2020 default business office proposed as of December 27, 2018.
Everybody have that document?
And I might be incorrect here, but what I'd like to know, and I think the way you articulate why our number from last Monday is sellable to the voting public is because we're not building a default budget. We do need to factor in things that are increasing that aren't necessarily built into the default. That's why we do the
What's
proposed
increasing?
and they do the default. And so if I could ask Jeff to explain the margin as best you can between what the number is now at the school board for the default and what our number includes that is not included in the default.
Well, I think one area is transportation, and in total, that's probably about 488,000 in some cases, greater than what it would be, right? Because we're 2 years behind on that.
So that is a number that we are pretty confident is going to go up, but is not being factored into the default budget.
We have a contract,
Right.
and we're required to provide transportation because of the Articles of Agreement.
Okay.
So we know we have to spend the money. It's required. The voters voted on it for us to spend the money.
Okay.
And we know that we have a contract, and the contract is higher than where we're at.
So we're anticipating a potential $500,000 increase in transportation that is currently not included in the default budget.
Correct, yep.
Okay. Are there some other things?
Well, largely, just some adjustments in insurance, and in total in that line, that's about 539,000. I don't think the school board budget came in quite in the same area on that. Those are a couple of the big items. In the default budget that I prepared, I've adjusted the number down. We included 500,000 in that 4,600 account, the building improvement account, last year for the default budget. Well, we didn't. The school board did. And looking at what we have for special projects, for CIP projects, for one-time projects, and looking at what we would normally just spend in due course, 100,000 is probably what your maintenance cost would be, failed septic or something like that. So that's only 100,000, but that's a $500,000 reduction in that line from where it was last year. We have staffing reductions, so those may offset, but we still have some increases in health and in the fund transfers have now been fully funded, so that's a very good thing. So those are some of the areas. If you look at I have another sheet that's this report. It's not the legal size. It's a Timberlane Regional School District by function consolidation. So this has nothing to do with the operating budget. If it's helpful or useful, this just shows the 19 voted budget. The 2020 default is voted by the school board with the difference.
I want to make sure they're
Following along.
We're trying.
Trying.
You want to start over?
So this
It was by function.
consolidation.
Okay, gotcha.
This is just very high level by the function code 1100, 1200. You'll see the first column is the 2019 voted. The next column is the 2020 default as presented by or as voted by the school board. Then the difference. Then you'll see the 2020 default business office and the voted, in that case, less defaults. You can see the differences and where some of those differences are if you look at the two. And I just say the default budget because when you look at from a strict perspective, what are we looking at, what's bare minimum based on staffing and that sort of thing. This report articulates some of those areas and some of those areas of concern in particular. You can see 2,900 on page 3 is higher, not quite high enough, got 120,000 there. Even with building improvements reduced, I'm still 100,000 higher. Again, that's in the 4,600. Looking at the fund transfer lines, we're pretty even in that regard. But largely, I think you're going to see the 2,700 account category, which is in the middle of page 2, about 482,000 difference, net in that account code and that account classification. So, and looking at this at the default budget, that's my default would be at 71,816. So, and this isn't my budget, I really just put that out there for comparative purposes in order to see maybe where some of the increases are, where some of the mandatory items are that I'm looking at and seeing where they would be. This isn't apples to apples to an operating budget, but it's probably helpful and informative, I hope.
So you're saying you would put the default at 71.8?
Correct. Yep, and the default was actually higher. My initial default was higher for a couple of reasons, but not the least of which was the fact that we had 500,000 in that 4,600 account last year. Mm-hmm. And so, well, if it's there, it's there. You basically get what you got, excluding certain statutory things, one-time expenditures, expenditures unlikely to recur, contractual obligations, and that sort of thing. So it would have even been higher if it just stayed at 500. We had a discussion at the board level and at the school board, and I had said, it's at 500 because that's where it was last year. But realistically, not everything that we do in that 4,600 account is a one-time project. I have a lot of projects that are just recurring. I'm always seeming to replace or repair significant septic system in one of our schools, and if I don't have the ability or the money to do that, I can't undertake those repairs. I've had fire alarm panels go, I believe, over the past 3 years, not inexpensive. So in terms of those recurring expenses, I think 100,000 is probably fairly representative of what we have in ordinary maintenance costs that go through that 4,600 account. So that's even 100,000 off because the school board is at $1.00, if you will. So you can see the comparison of school board to business office and where some of the needs are, and that might help identify. A lot of cases we have reductions that are the same, and in some cases we have reductions that are different, and in some cases we have increases that are different. They're almost in lockstep, though, in terms of typically if we've had a reduction, school board will have a reduction, I'll have a reduction. If we've had an increase, school board will have an increase, I'll have an increase, except for transportation, which is at 482. So realistic, if I put a couple of those pieces together, $500,000 for transportation, which again is not a 1-year increase, that's a 2-year increase, 482. 2,900 items, which are some pension and benefits. I'm up 281, the school board's up 160, that's a difference of 120,000, so now you're up to 600,000. I'm 100,000 higher in building improvements, that brings you to 700,000. Some of the reductions that the school board has taken are greater than the reductions that I would be looking at as required under the statute. And the school board can do what they want. I simply present this as to where those differences may lie.
Thank you, Jeff.
Anybody have Peter.
I guess a couple things. I believe you're right in the fact that this committee has to sell these, whatever we end up agreeing on tonight. Mm-hmm. To that end, I'm hoping, at least in Plastow, that you, Dave, and I would take some time and go in front of the selectmen and talk about the budget and why we are where we are. And I would encourage other people from other towns to also do the same thing. I know when I was on the school board, I did that routinely. But in this case, we're the people, the budget committee's the people trying to sell this. I also want to point out that I believe that the school board were the people who gave the administration the marching orders to try to come in with a flat budget. And they did. So I would hope that at the end of the day, we'd have school board support as well on this. People just did what they were asked, sharpened their pencils and came in. So, personally, I'm in favor of leaving it at 71,933. And hoping and encouraging people not to add money to this, or try to add money to this during, deliberative. So.
I'm concerned that, so I don't know what the school board's gonna do, meaning if they're gonna adjust their number and, I'll say go up. But $1 million is a huge spread to put in front of a voter.
The school board has the opportunity to fix that transportation line to the tune of almost $500,000.
Again, we're not gonna break the law.
But so,
touch it.
so I'm just saying, we can't get into this, what the school board will do here.
Right.
But right now, we're at $1 million spread, so it's a comfort factor for people. Jeff, what about the benefit line? We were over by a few $100,000. Can we do anything there? I know we had this discussion before. It's always the big unknown, who will take a plan, who may not take it. But we've typically, or I'll say we've historically had an overage in those. I'm looking for anything that can help just bring the number a little bit less than $1 million, wherever we can go. Hold on, Kathy, I just want to see if Jeff's got.
That's taking a minute to pull the number.
It's 928 now, right?
What's that?
The difference.
928,000?
I mean, it's not quite $1 million.
They're at 70.9 even,
I thought it was, yeah.
and we're at 71.933.
Right.
It's not $1 million exactly, but it's pretty close.
That's what I thought.
I don't have the exact number, Peter.
It's probably the same case.
Okay.
That's the problem.
I know what I'm looking at. Sorry, I was looking at the wrong thing.
So hold on, Jeff's getting some information. I thought we had it on.
Last week's.
What's that?
The benefit line?
Yeah. Still probably too bad.
So now,
We've asked this breakdown,
it's pretty close. I think that in that entire function,
I'm done.
uh,
Asking good questions, asking things, you don't get them.
I just don't know the great unknown.
Let me go take it.
So I mean, overall, you're at 300,000, 361 over where we were in the previous year
So it's about 360.
in total.
Right.
In total.
And so that's that big variable. We
Right.
just don't know who's gonna take what.
And we don't really know. And when I run calculations and I look at where we're at, 10,370 seems like a reasonable estimate. It's not full boat for everyone,
Right.
but it's a reasonable estimate as to where we'll be. And I think even if we were to look at insurance, I was looking at insurance. Just on increases alone, you're at 6.5%.
Didn't you tell us last week, Jeff, that it's basically 6.5% plus a certain number of employees that might,
Yes.
if they were to, what was that, was it think you said it, I don't know if it was 18, 20, 30, how many employees it would take
It
to
wasn't a lot. Let me see if I can grab
bridge
that.
that gap.
It wasn't a lot of employees.
No. And I will, what I'm gonna do is I'm running right now, and I think Kathy had done the same thing, just looked at the actual spend from last year, and roll it forward, increase it by I think it was 6.8. And then $9.5, and then you take that and your 10,208 on increases alone from our actual spend, when you look at our actual spend in 17-18. You're at 10,208. Did we have reductions? We did have reductions. Not everyone accepted, or not everyone was utilizing insurance. And I believe that factor was 120,000 or something to that effect. So even if you took into account the 120,000, that could be 4 or 5 policies, and another 100,000. I mean, that's 5 policies, yeah. So 18 would be probably about right in terms of a swing. Not full boat, just 18 people accepting insurance who hadn't taken it before. If you want to cut, there certainly could be some room there to do so. But we can only go on our best guess, best estimate.
What, pardon me?
Go ahead and make a motion,
Two.
reduce that budget by, maybe 100K.
Can you put the numbers out again, just so it's, do we have that paper in our packet?
I don't think so.
No.
Let's see what we got here. Well, going on, so our 17-18 spend was 8.9, almost 9 million. Roll that forward with your increase.
Yep.
That brings you to 9.5, almost 9.6
Mhm.
for current year spend. Roll that forward into next year, and you're at 10,208.
10,208,000.
Yep. Take away from that if you wanted to. You could take away from that those 120,000 that we had from staff reductions,
Okay.
and that would leave you at 10 million, almost 10.1.
So that's 100,000 off, roughly?
10.1, yep.
Yep.
And we're at 10,370. So if you were to figure 24,000 for not high, not low, somewhere in between on medical coverage, you look at the difference, it's about 300,000 off. That's your difference.
Are you saying you can do away with 300,000?
No,
No.
saying that we're 300,000 off
Mhm.
as it stands right now. That's like 12 and a half policies. So if we took 100,000 away, we're just hedging it a little closer, that's all.
It's 100,000. Dave,
Make a motion, we reduce,
what's the line?
what's the line?
So it's 100, 2,900, 210. Got it?
100, 2,900, 210.
Okay, I make a motion that we reduce line item 2,900-210 by $100,000.
Second it.
Second by Alan.
Discussion.
Discussion. Anybody want some clarification on what this will do as far as how many people want to come on? How many people, if they took the policy, would bring us to level out?
Jeff, can you, I see historically we've been up between voted and expended up until the 17-18 voted versus expended.
Can you tell us where you're looking?
Right there on the same line, I'm just looking out at 17-18 voted minus 17-18 expended. Can you go into a little detail as to why we were so close that year? Prior to that year, we had a good amount of
Page 16.
surplus in that line.
All right, hold on, just for everybody.
Go to page 15.
Page
16.
16.
At the bottom. And so you're looking at account 100, 2900, 210, right?
Yes.
Group
Yep.
insurance. So you're looking at the 1718 voted versus the 1718 spent. So the
Correct.
voted was 8974, spend was 8792, difference of 182,000. And prior to that, that gap was at 600,000. And I think, quite frankly, we've just gotten a little bit closer on budgeting. You can see that there was a large gap before that. I believe we ended up absorbing some of that because we had a huge increase. We had a huge increase, 21% GMR, I think. And so I think we went a little thinner that year than we normally would on that line. And then after that, we're a little bit closer to where it is. You see 182,000 is the difference.
It looks like the voted 16-17 leaped to the 17-18 voted, only went up a very, very small amount.
Yep.
So the budget committee at the time didn't factor in the 6.5% increase, or?
I think we had a higher GMR. The GMR came in lower.
Okay.
So when you looked at that, and it was probably the first year that I had budgeted that line and just took a good hard look at it, and we came in a whole lot closer as a result without actually having to move too much on it. We had some staff reductions at the time as well.
Okay.
So I think maybe I might run it a little closer than perhaps the former BA did.
Mike?
Good.
Well, but if you look at the summary, for that particular year, 1718 voted, 1718 expended, 2900 summary, you underexpended $500,000, and the bulk of that was teacher retirement. So when you look at all those things combined, which is group insurance, FICA, non-teacher retirement, so that support services 2900 summary, voted 17.3, expended 16.8.
So right now, we're at, for FICA, for example, we're at 2497, right? Current year requests. And then when we look at the 1718 spend, it's 2491. So we've got 2 years of increases built in and really not a lot of movement on the line. Non-teacher retirement, 799, 1718 spend, 767. Again, not a lot of movement in the line. We have increases in wages all the time. We have some reductions in staff. Teacher retirement, you can see 4699 currently requested. 4566 was the spend in 1718. So we may have had a pretty large surplus in that line overall, and we're not, even 2 years later, we're not much higher in that line in a lot of those items than we were. So we're working into that surplus a bit. We've had increases. FICA, for example, we've had increases in wages. We've kept that at a good level. So we have increases in the requested budget for teacher retirement in particular. Again, the numbers higher than spend two years before, but it's still within range.
Bill?
Thank you. Mike, along the way, you've given us, I think, good advice, we're suggesting that we not focus too much on the default, that we worry about the budget that's before us. And even tonight, just putting into context, perception, our job, we want to put something before the voters that we believe is in the public interest and does right by the schools, but that will, ultimately pass and not fail. That job would be made easier for us tonight, now that we're looking at the default budget. We're being asked to bring things closer, which, politically speaking, makes a lot of sense. What I'm having, what's challenging for me, and I'm not sure the voters can appreciate it or not, is that the default budget where it is now is essentially where it was 3 years ago.
That's right.
That doesn't happen. That doesn't happen under normal budgeting process, where you roll back few years ago. But we're being asked, after going through the process of creating our own budget, that's pretty flat, to further cut. I'm not opposed to cutting. I'd certainly feel a heck of a lot better if I had a sense that the schools could run on the default budget and that it sort of wasn't as vulnerable to legal exposure, if you will, down the road as well. I don't remember seeing a budget roll back a couple of years. And there can be justifications for it, but all signs point to healthcare costs going up, transportation costs going up. It leaves me unsettled. I'm open to supporting, as Julie, the other night, we supported a cut to the energy line items. I don't mind going line by line and finding where there can be savings here, but I worry that this default budget was created, it's unclear what pain should be felt if the voters opted for the default budget. I hope that they don't. Not because I'm looking for an increase, because I haven't been convinced that the school can meet its obligations at that budget. It's a concern, and I think I'll close it up by saying, I think it's unfair that we're being asked in some ways to be the ones to come down and meet folks halfway. I'm all for negotiating, but if one of the numbers appears to be hard to justify, I hope the other body moves in upwards a little bit. There may not be the votes for that, and ultimately, I want to put something before the voters that they feel good about, but, yeesh. That default budget is not doing us any favors.
Okay. So 2 hands over here. John?
So the motion is to remove 100.
Remove 100.
So I'd like to move the motion.
Was it
to a
seconded?
vote.
Hold on, it was seconded by Alan.
Okay. So I'd like to move the motion,
You'd like to what?
I'd like to move to a vote on it,
Call the vote.
call a vote.
Okay. All right. All those in favor, actually, I'm gonna have Sarah just read it back, please.
Motion made by Mr. Gurns to reduce line 100, 2,900, 210 by $100,000, seconded by Mr. David.
Everybody's clear on that? All those in favor? Hold your hands up, please. All those opposed? And abstentions? None. So that was 9. So that motion passes. Kathy, did you have your hand up?
No, no.
That's 100,000 closer. Okay.
If I may,
Go ahead.
so just so we're all on the same page and it doesn't get out of hand like it did the last meeting, I would propose that the current, the budget when we all walked in the room was 71,933,700, so this takes it to 71,833,700.
What do you got? 71?
71.833.
Yep.
I mean, the problem is, but as far as the default budget goes, they cannot put in the transportation, and they can't put in special services, correct?
We have a disagreement on that.
We're not agreeing on that. That's what the difference is, right there.
Yeah.
We'd be right there with the default. And if the transportation, that we'd have to sell that to the voters, that we need the transportation line and the contracted transportation line and the health benefits, that's how it is. Staff, so, I don't know, it's $1 million. That's what the difference is.
Well, now we're a little bit closer though.
Yeah. I mean, where else can you cut? I mean.
So, I think it'd be important to know, like, this new law that's in place, right? I mean, that's kind of like the debatable thing, right?
Yes.
Whether you disagree with the way that they're handling it, and the school board feels they're following the law because they're not including it. But the reality is that this new law says that because the transportation contract isn't on the ballot in front of the voters,
Not voted on, right.
that even though we know that's increasing, it can't be included in the default, which, in my opinion, is kind of ludicrous because we know that that's an increase coming, and we as a committee need to budget for that.
I think what the law says is any budget, any contract that's a multi-year that didn't go out to vote and the vote is approved, just like the teacher's contract is going out, we approve that, that's increased automatically every year. That's a contractual obligation because the voters said, yes, this is what I want. They didn't put the transportation contract out to vote as they should have. So that cannot be included. If we voted on it and said yes, it would be included.
But we know we're under the contract.
Doesn't
We're the
matter.
budget committee,
So let
and
me
we
just
know
do
what's
this.
going
Hold on.
on. It doesn't
Point.
matter for default, it matters for us.
Oh, yes,
All right,
yes.
just hold on. I just want to be careful. So we're not going down here to discuss the law, right? So I think Alan made a good point. There's a discrepancy between the way two parties are looking at it, and the bus contract will bring us to that number. Why they're at a disagreement, that's between the two parties.
Yes.
It's not for us to really
Yeah, I think we should
resolve.
put it in the budget. And that's where we're at, 71,833. I mean,
And it is in our budget.
right.
Yeah. So, but we understand why we have that difference between where we are and where the default is. At least you can understand it, whether you agree
The
on
other
what's
issue is, can you make that transparent to the voters so they're gonna vote for it? Or then we're gonna be at the 70,009. So are we doing a service, I mean, to the voters and not giving an option between that, between the 71,833 and the 70,000,009? That's the question.
Kathy?
I'm getting confused with the numbers tonight. So that's, the difference isn't just the transportation, because the transportation is what?
460.
Half a million.
So there's still
That's
another.
a big piece of it, you're right.
Yeah, there's a big piece, and that might be justifiable.
You
but-
don't have capital in your default, right? So that's
No.
the other part of it too. It's like about 500.
Also, the other piece, it's 400,000, wasn't it,
right.
capital or something?
Four, and there was 100,000 for repairs. Was that
For
also
site.
removed?
So that's the difference.
Salaries in the default are higher than the salaries
Yes.
proposed.
Yep.
Okay, so the difference is in salaries.
No, just it's overall, it's all over the place, but
Right.
our numbers for salaries higher than the proposed. How about that?
Just, how long is the bus contract that we have? We just went into it, so I can't remember.
3-year.
3 year.
That's 2 more years.
So for 2 more years, we'll be dealing with this as in a default unless something changes in the,
Something passes, yeah.
yeah.
Okay.
And hopefully.
So if my math is right, are we down about 900,000, 933,000? Yeah, that's the spread between the two. That's what you got, Julie? Okay. Floor is open. Going once?
So, I got a question. So in our budget, we're gonna increase the line item in the CIP? Is that what we're doing? We're increasing the CIP to 400,000?
No, we voted last Monday, that fails to,
Right,
so it's whatever in there right now, the 400 plus the 100 for capital.
correct and correct. 400 for capital, I think it's 100, they call it for a site.
Okay, so
A
it's in there.
total of
now.
500,000.
Okay, that's what's in there, is a 500,000
Right.
now.
Do you need a motion?
Unless you want to sit here.
Well, I'm just,
It beats standing.
you didn't ask for one.
I just have a comment. I mean, just realistically, looking at this, we need to find somewhere, we need to take some money off of this proposed budget that
1,100
we have,
line item?
because,
What's 1,100?
because I think what's gonna happen is they're gonna just go with the default budget, the way the voters have been voting, and then we're gonna be stuck
With the default.
with that default. And we really wanna try and avoid that. So,
I agree with you.
do we just say, we need to reduce this by another 400,000? They figure out where it comes from. We're not doing it. We're not gonna go line by line. I mean, I really think we need
So-
to do something.
Can you just elaborate, when you say, like, what are you looking at?
I mean, I'm just going by the general pulse of how people that I talk to feel about this, that anything that's increased, they're gonna look at the bottom line, they're gonna look at the number, and they're gonna go with whichever number is lower. They're not interested in the details. They don't know what the difference is, if it's a default budget that they're working with versus an operating budget. They're just looking at a number. And
I'm having a hard time that this board is tasked with its own, funding or setting up of a budget that properly funds the district, being held hostage by a budget that clearly does not properly fund the district.
Okay, I think you better
I don't
be careful
disagree.
there.
I don't-
Sir.
No, we
You better
can-
be careful.
We can disagree, can't
We
we?
can disagree, but let's not, was any bill not paid last year? Any service not provided last year?
Last year.
Bill's not paid by the
No.
district.
No.
I thought we ran this place. And did we hit a surplus too?
2.7 million.
2.7.
Let me
This
just
guy was
hold
falling
on,
last
hold
year.
on, please.
How did we do that?
Please, hold on. Julie had the floor.
She did. She,
yeah, I was pretty much done. I just wanted to express my opinion of where I felt this was going, and that I really do feel that we need to do something. I think that the district would be better working off of an operating budget than a default budget. So I would like to do whatever we could to try and get that to pass. That's all.
Hold on, let me get Alan. And
Well, if we
then
can-
we get Phil.
if we can trust the school board to say that they can operate on 70,000,009, but not take into consideration the transportation increase, which is concerning to us, I think, as a board. So that's, well, we want to round it up to 500,000. So now we're at, without adding anything else to that, if we're going to do flat, we're going to do level line, flat line and build up. So that's 500, that's 71,4, okay, including for the transportation. Now, we're at 71, last count was 71,8.
But there's capital too.
So the capital, so is it 250? You want to add that? Well, no, the capital
400.
CIP?
It's 400.
CIP, yeah, so now you're back up to where we're at, so, I don't know. And so I kind of agree with Julie, because you're going to get that passed, can you sell that? I think it's important to put the CIP in there, I really do. We're kicking the can down the road for too long. So, but is that, I mean, now we're being asked to say, what are the voters going to tolerate? Now we have to, you know what I mean? It's not really our job. So the real number should be at where we're at, the 71,832.
But you know what? Then we're talking. We're going to try to sell the public in 2 years on a bond and ask them to pay another $1.6
Yeah, I
million
know.
a
I got
year.
you.
And they're not going to go for that
So-
either.
I
So
guess, in good conscience,
we
if you
have
feel
to
as though,
fund the facilities.
so if you feel in good conscience that you need those two items in there, you need the CIP added in, and I think we all agree on the transportation, we're at the 71,833 is a number, and that's where we're at. So,
I
unless
think
anybody-
that's a great point, and in fact, the 4,200 and the 4,600, the 4,200 and the 4,600, the 42 and 4,600 accounts are 100,000 and 400,000. That's five, and then it's the bus contract. If you look at it very simply like that, it's amazing that those two numbers are that close.
I do have a question for Brian. He mentioned that the salary line was different than the default. What is the difference in the salary line that we have here?
I have, off the top of my head, it's higher. It's higher in the default than is proposed.
It's 16 something.
So,
the default.
all I can say is that I think it's kind of crazy for this board to be deliberating the hell out of the default budget.
Right.
I don't quite get what's going on here, to tell you the truth. We've already spent 3 meetings on the default budget, which is 3 more than probably anyone else in the state has. So,
So what are you saying? We should just vote on the.
no, I'm saying, no, stick with what your task is, but I have no idea what, I'm not gonna sit back and, I'm very confident in our default budget, and we spent quite a bit of time deliberating it. The whole board spent quite a bit of time deliberating it. And the board was also frustrated about the transportation thing, but, we have too many opinions from.
Brian, let me do this.
It's crazy for us to
Can you
keep
share-
eating this up.
Can you share what was the voting support out of your 9 members on the school board? How many supported that number you're currently at?
I don't think they
The default budget?
They haven't voted on it yet.
The default budget?
Yeah.
8-1 maybe? 8-1?
Is that number been voted on?
Yes.
Like the number that's
Oh,
there
yeah.
right now? Like-
Absolutely.
Like to put forward to the
So the
warrant?
7-2 or 8-1,
It's
yeah.
not to put
Okay, hold on,
forward,
folks.
it's voted
So
on.
I'm just trying to get a sense of what kind of confidence the 9 people have on that one number.
Well, what do you mean confidence?
Right, I don't
Well, they
understand the question.
voted in support of that number.
Right, I mean, just,
It supports Brian's statement, it's saying he was confident, and he's speaking for the board, it's helpful.
well, I guess my question's this. So the default budget is a backstop, if you will, in case the budget that this committee produces doesn't pass. And it's created by formula, basically. Okay?
That 8 out of 9 people are supporting.
Right. They're supporting that the formula was done properly.
Sure.
The support isn't that can run the district successfully. The support is that it was done per the formula.
Okay.
Okay, so that's
The
kind
formula
of
is
a
designed to
different.
be able to run the school
Yeah,
board.
to run the
school.
district.
That's all.
The formula is,
Given the formula,
Stop, stop. These are semantics.
well,
I get,
it is what it is. I'm
They
not-
recommended 9-0, the teacher's contract, which is
I mean,
8 and change.
that's how they derive those numbers. You have to have percentages.
it was, look, it's another data point for you to know what the vote was on that budget.
So,
Phil, you look like you're,
Trying to do math, and that hurts my head. But if this goes on say the ballot is 71,833, what percent increase, Jeff, does that represent over last year's budget?
It's decreased.
What was the question?
What percent increase would it
this
represent?
was last year's.
He's being a lawyer.
It's a decrease.
Right.
So we're having debate about the merits of further decreasing the decrease. How do we sell it to the voters?
It's the same, it's not a decrease.
it's a decrease because we actually went down by about 40,000.
Yeah.
71,833 is a decrease. Last year was 71,800 before the million was put on there, and then the default was 71,870.
Right.
So we're oh, I see what you're saying, sorry. My head's hurting too from it.
Lots of numbers.
half of a 0.5% less than last year's voted, which was last year's default. So we're half of a 0.5% less than last year's default.
Right. And last year's default also did not include the busing increase, correct?
It did.
It did?
No, I don't think so, but it did include,
Be the portion,
well,
not all of it.
yeah, it was special ed, and a bunch of different things, but it did
Peter?
include 500 in
Right.
capital.
Peter, you had something?
I gotta make
Make a motion.
a motion that we put forth a budget of $71,833,700.
Second.
Give me 71,833?
700.
And we have a second by Todd.
Yep.
Okay. You beat this up enough?
Go to vote.
What do you got there,
It's
Jeff?
just that minus 100, since it's 71,833,
700.
700, yeah.
Sorry, you got the $700 on the end of that?
Yep.
Yep.
Perfect.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Hold your hands up.
Number you wanted?
Bye.
Okay, all those opposed? Hold your hands up. 1, 2, 3.
That's the problem, I shouldn't have 10.
What's it? It goes, doesn't he?
Like the VP or
I
something.
think I
the
know
Senate,
where he's
right?
going. So that's it.
I thought you were comfortable with that.
You're like the president of the Senate?
Yeah,
The thing is.
Okay.
a VP, I
So
think.
that motion fails.
I'm sorry? Oh, you said something?
That motion failed.
Okay.
That's what I said.
I just didn't hear you.
I guess we need more discussion, I suppose, at this point.
For the people at the table, you got a split group here. And what would get you a little bit closer to get one person to maybe move to the other side so we can get a majority? I mean, I'm glad, we tried to do a cut here. I've made my concerns. I don't know where to pull it from. I'm almost at the point where it's not fair for me to adequately just say, take it from a specific line item. Let the business administrator, the administration, and the school board play with it. I feel that if we go back to a default, we're in big trouble again.
I think you're right.
There's
I
no
agree.
capital in that default. There's certain things on it. This proposed budget, in my view, needs to get closer. And Phil, I understand what you're saying. We're basically at the same number we were last year. We're still.
And plus we had the
We're still
teacher
far away.
contract, we want them to vote for that, we're
It
gonna
was
be,
out last week.
so.
This
I don't know.
warrant was out last week.
Suggestions from somebody?
I think you're right, I think you're on the right track, instead of going line item by line item, is there a number that we wanna reduce this by? And let the business administrator figure it out. That's to Julie's point a while ago.
Kind of had that happen last year, and what we did was we went through everything that was discussed, basically, that was closed by the board, because there was a lot of discussion by this board. So I could just go through and say, well, what did you guys look at, and what didn't you cut, and that's where I could go. Here, where do I go?
And so this is part of the reason I asked Brian, what was the vote? Because I'm basing this on this. Do I think the school board is going to move on their number? And what was the vote for that number? I've got my input. I'm not asking you to repeat it. And so it looks like that's a fixed point. It looks like it's a fixed point. Where the other fixed point? So, how do we get closer?
Mr. Chairman, I'm like, it's a 5-5, so I'm gonna stick, I'm gonna stick with my board. And the board told me to bring a message 70.5, so I'm not about to go against the board.
I hear you.
I just want to let you know that
What was the board, what was that? I didn't hear
the
that.
board, as I mentioned earlier in the meeting tonight, asked me to bring a message to this board for 70.5, so, the
71.5?
71.5, I'm sorry. And, so I was going to, so I'm not gonna go against the will of the board.
So that's a $333,700.
So that leaves you 4 others.
I'd be willing to go down another 100,000.
And that would be just a general, without picking a specific line?
I would too. I mean, it's important that this body show that there's some consensus, not that everyone's going to vote the same way, but I'd want to avoid the default. It would be nice if the default came up, but that's not up to us. I would support cutting $100,000 and probably couldn't support cutting more.
Kathy, you had your hand up slightly?
I did not.
That's a first.
I could support 100,000, but I think we have to define whether it's from operating or capital.
Agreed.
Okay, because there's a taxation difference.
Right.
And throwing it back to the voters, saying we don't know where it's coming from,
Right. So I get a couple folks tossing around possibly take another 100. And I think, were you hinting more on the operational side?
Yes.
I wasn't, but
Well,
yeah.
I'll tell you
No,
what.
yes,
Yes. I'll cross that bridge when we get there. First, we just got to find a number.
I agree. I'm leaning towards the operational side, too.
Right.
All right.
Mr. Gerns wants to say something.
Oh, sorry, David.
I make a motion that we reduce the budget from $71,733,700. That $100,000 comes from operations.
Second.
So, motion by David Gerns and a second by Todd. Sarah, can you just read back? the-
Sure. Motion by David Gerns to reduce the budget from the $71,733,700 by another $100,000 from the operations.
You got it. Everybody clear on that?
So you're voting on 71.7.
We are voting on 71, 733,
733. Yep.
700. Okay. If there's no more discussion, I'm going to call it to a vote. All those in favor, raise your hands. 1, 2. Keep your hands up.
7, oh, wait a minute. Sorry.
Well, she's voting on it, but she's voting.
So Kathy was a no? Didn't vote on that?
Yeah, no, sorry. Yeah.
Okay,
Julie's good.
6.
keep your hands up.
Passes.
All those opposed? Alan, did you hand up?
Sorry.
Okay.
Four.
Small
Yeah.
4.
So that motion passes.
Yes.
There you
So
go.
it's,
There you
that's
go.
where we're at,
So
71,733.
that is the motion. So now we need a motion to move it forward.
Yes.
David?
I make a motion that, that the operating budget, $71,733,700 be brought forward to public hearing
On January 10th.
Huh?
On January 10th.
Sorry?
On January 10th.
On January 10th.
All right. Second?
Seconded.
Todd seconds that. Discussion? None? All in favor?
Six.
And opposed?
4.
Get it done. Okay. That's the number we will present on January 10th.
That's that.
I don't believe we really have any other business. Jeff?
I don't think so. I just think we went over everything, SEU budget and risks and all that. That included the revenue budget, I assume. Motion is made, so we'll push the revenue budget forward as well, so.
Anybody else have anything under other business? Okay. So the next time we're going to get together is January 10th. This will be over at the Performing Arts Center at 7 PM, and we will be presenting at the public hearing this budget. $71,733,700. That's it?
I have a question.
Yes.
Jeff, on a schedule, you have us having a meeting on the 24th between after the public hearing, and I guess before deliberative. Is that set in stone? Are we gonna?
I think that might have been on the calendar. I'm not sure that there'd be a need.
I don't think there'd be any business.
But we can just leave it there for now. But yeah, I agree with you. There should be no need. We will have a meeting after the public hearing, just to take action. Okay? Are we all set?
The motion we adjourn.
Motion to adjourn, and Alan seconds it at 8:27. All in favor? Aye.
That's that.
January 10th, next year.